Okay, so out here in the entry to the house again, I wanted to share some thoughts on King David. Typically I've been sharing from the Gospel of Matthew, but I'm going to save that for tonight because we're able to get together again in groups of 10 or less. And tonight here at the house, we're going to get together again. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be neat to be together again with our Bible study group and just praying together and praising together. That's going to be good. So I thought I'd share from the life of David. Just a thought I had, during his life, and particularly I wanted to talk about that episode, and we're all familiar with it. Whether you're a Christian or not, you've heard of David and Goliath, and so the story goes that the army of the Philistines and the Israeli army, the army of God, were lined up in battle, and the champion of the Philistine army, this fellow named Goliath, big giant of a man, literally. Was taunting the armies of the Lord. And David's father Jesse said, look, he was tending the sheep, and his father says, I want you to go check on your older brothers, see how they're doing, bring some provision, some supplies. So David leaves his sheep in the care of another, and he goes out to the front line, and he sees and hears this giant really blaspheming and defying the armies of the Lord. And he says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he would do such a thing? And he really became indignant about it, and he wanted to go and take care of business. And Eliab, his older brother, in this is 1 Samuel 17, verse 27, 28, says he heard when David spoke to the men that Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down here to see the battle. David went down there. David's the runt of the litter. He's the youngest of the 8 brothers that Jesse had. And he comes out there, and his motivation is questioned. And I wrote about that, and then I also wrote about the fact that they questioned not only his motivation, but his ability. And down in verse 33, Saul, the king, said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he is a man of war from his youth. And David goes on to convince King Saul that he is able, that there have been times when he was out in the field with his sheep where he's fought off lion. He killed a lion, he killed a bear. He said, look, I am able, my motivation is right. I want to see God honored, and I am able to do this. And you guys know the story, and the 5 smooth stones and the sling, and bam, took out the giant with one shot. But after he had convinced Saul that he was able, Saul clothed David with his armor, verse 38, and he put on the bronze helmet on his head, and he also clothed him with a coat of mail. And David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk with these, for I have not tested them. So, in other words, he couldn't wear Saul's armor. They wasn't comfortable. He hadn't really tested them, as he says. And here's, the point, or the moral of the story, is that we shouldn't wear other people's armor when we're going about God's business, or even broader, any business for that matter. I thought of a time back when I had graduated from the Horizon School of Evangelism, and I went on to go to Bible college. After that, I started Bible college, and I was working for Campus Services. It was a large church. They had taken over an old junior high there in San Diego, and it was a really large campus. And so Campus Services was the janitorial and maintenance staff, building and grounds maintenance. And so I went on, that's where I was working, and we were tasked with, during the holiday season, building these photograph vignettes where people, photo ops. And because I had worked as a scenic carpenter, I freelanced for different production companies building stage sets. I was tasked with this. And I had some friends from my class, from the School of Evangelism, and come and help. And as a team, there was a bunch of us, we got together and helped. And my friend Bo, who I've recently reconnected with after many years, this is 20 years ago, And recently connected with him. He's a pastor planning a church up in Montana. Well, they're getting ready to, they're kind of just putting their ducks in a row and all, and really need to see what the Lord's doing there. But Bo was part of this team, and Bo is a graffiti artist. I mean, he's amazing. You give the guy a spray can, and he can do some really neat things. He also does work on canvas. I've been able to see some of his work on, like I said, on the Facebook page. But here's the point. We had built the flats, very simple construction, and I do recall we were building this one kind of cityscape, the skyline of a city, and it turned out okay. But I had him paint it sort of in a realistic, or using like realism sort of depiction of a cityscape, and we did all these various other vignettes, and the Lord spoke to my heart after that, and He said to me, I should have had Bo use his gifting, his skill set, and it would have been unique. It would have been better, and in a sense, we were working as a team. But in a sense, I was kind of overseeing the work, and in a sense, I had Bo wear my armor to operate according to my vision and my plan. And the Lord ministered to me and said, I had him wear my armor, and it would have been much better if I had unleashed him in all that God had given him and blessed him with his ability to paint the not only that one particular vignette, but the others. And it would have been a lot better. And I also think, being on the other side of the equation in my own life, during that time in ministry, planning churches, and the one particularly in the cities, where I looked at other pastors and other ministries, and I began to emulate the things that they were doing because I viewed them to be successful or cool, whatever the case. And so I began to wear and do things in such a way that I saw others doing, but it wasn't what God had for me. It was cool and unique and successful for other people, but it didn't work out that way for me. And I found out kind of on the other side of that equation what it's like and how unsuccessful it is to wear other people's armor. And I have to continually discover who I am in the Lord and how He's wired me and the gifting and the calling that He's given me, and this would apply obviously to you, so that we can fulfill all that God has for us. But if we are burdened by other people, or we burden ourselves by comparing or admiring what other people are doing, and we're wearing and doing things as they're doing them, well, we're going to hinder the work of God. You see, David went out to battle with no armor. He had that slingshot and those 5 smooth stones, and it only took the first stone for success to happen. And I just want to encourage you that, don't get caught up in the trap of thinking you've got to do something like somebody else, or if somebody's trying to put a burden on you. I think in a gentle way, a tactful way, we want to kind of honor that the fact that we're a team, but we want to figure out how we can, kind of fulfill and use all that God has for us. The other application here, and I think it's pretty obvious, is being a parent. My son is 17, my daughter's 16, and so we've kind of been doing this for a little bit now, and interesting years, these mid to late teen years. But the Lord taught me an interesting lesson some time ago, and in regards not only to that incident with Bo, but then raising children. And He said, I don't want you to mold them. I don't want you to shape them. I want you to unfold them. I want you to help them to discover who I've created them to be. And so I have a strong personality, and my wife has a strong personality. And so it's inevitable that to some level or degree that, we're going to, kind of have an influence in our children's life. And that's right. Okay, that's okay. But we've been careful to allow them to express themselves and to kind of grow up into God, who God has created them to be. So again, we're not forcing them into a box. There's no codependency here. I don't need them to be a certain way to make me feel good about myself. I want them to be who God's created them to be. And boy, there's an application in marriage too. I mean, you could really, apply this. The application is very broad here. You could, whether you're a manager in the workplace, a business owner, whatever the case may be, there's a broad application here. So remember, don't let other people, put their armor on you, and don't do it to yourself as I did, and then don't put your armor on to somebody else, expecting them to do things in the way that you would do them. That's the neat thing about the body of Christ. We're all unique. We're all individual. And so while there's unity, there shouldn't be forced uniformity. We should enjoy the expressions of faith and the individuality that God has wired into us, and the gifting. And so that's a beautiful thing. We are this beautiful mosaic of personalities, and sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, people, right? I mean, hashtag people, and it's never a dull moment. But hey, we should really enjoy one another, and watch one another bloom and blossom in who God has created us to be. So I pray this is a blessing for you, and that God will meet you and minister to you, and that you'd have a great day in the Lord Jesus. Bye.